Full faces on this fine, very sunny, extremely warm Saturday evening. Um, I'm excited to welcome us to another edition of our Women and the Society seminar. This is the 6th edition we've had this year. And for those who are joining us online virtually for the first time, our Women and the Society seminars hold every month. So it's on the last Saturday of every month at 5 p.m., the exact same venue. So please pencil us into your calendar and join us whenever you can. This is an important conversation that we know has been beneficial to our community. So we expect that every single session we have every month offers the attendee something. And we've had several testimonials of how people's lives are being changed, just by listening to the seminars that are curated here. I want to say that we take time to really handpick everyone who comes through several means. So one way is to ask those who are attending, what exactly are the things you want to hear about? So that way we can look at our society and find women who are the epitome of what is sought after. And then we are very privileged that we always have them come and tell us about, how they've thrived in these areas. Okay, so I'll take a couple of steps back. My name is Chika. I'm the privileged convener of WTAL Canada. WTAL means Woman Thou Art Loosed. And the origin of Woman Thou Art Loosed takes its meaning or draws its meaning from the fact that in the present day society, we know that women are often stifled or always unheard or always considered second rate or not as important. And because of that, we find that many women are many times handicapped and are also barriers to themselves because of this mindset that has been perpetuated. So what we want to do here is allow us to think, to feel free to think, to chase those things that bring us fulfillment, to answer the questions on how we can thrive in a society that continues to change. Maybe not fast enough, because we still see in many circles that men dominate in income, in employment, in leadership positions, in the things that many women are also qualified for. They often tend to look at men first. So what we're doing here is going into our society and finding women who have broken those barriers and asking them to tell us, how have they done this thing? What are the tricks of the trade? What have you found to be tried and tested, so that the rest of us don't have to go through what they've gone through, but find an easier route to achieve those things? So this is why WTAL was birthed, because we want to make it easier for women who are coming after us. We want to empower them, provide them opportunities that many of us didn't have but had to fight for. So this is really about women empowerment. And that doesn't mean that men are unwelcome. We've had men who have attended and who have also been, who have shared very worthwhile, information about their experience here and how it has really remolded the way they've thought. One thing that we hear the men say is that they can now know how to champion women advancement, because they know what it is that women are going through, and they have a clearer picture of what the challenges are now, so they can speak better about it. So while we're trying to empower women, we also want to enlighten the men as to what it is that women are really going through in a society where many of them can be oblivious, because things are easier for them. This month marks exactly 3 years of WTAL. Can someone put your hands together for that information? Yeah. So 3 years of empowering women. 3 fantastic years. And Women Thou Art Loosed, I want to say, is extremely comprehensive, because in many occasions what we find that happens in our society is where organizations hone in on just one facet of our lives. But what we do here is multidimensional, and multifaceted, where we want to prepare women to thrive in society, in career, in business, in employability. We also want to take care of their mental wellness, help them build character. Many of us are struggling for positions in society, but haven't really built the character for those roles. So that's one of the things that we're trying to build in Women Thou Art Lose, is to really mold the well-rounded woman. And the end goal of this organization is that women are living lives that are more fulfilled, where they're able to really lay hold on everything that they desire and nothing is suffering. Because one thing you hear women say often is that, I've had to forego this for that. I've had to forego this for that. And it's like we're really the only ones who are often, confronted with sacrifices, having to leave one thing for the other. I've heard women say to me, "Oh, hey, Dr. Chika, how do you do this? Because, you're a mom, you have 3 children, you have all these different things you're working on, but isn't something suffering? I've had to, put children on hold until I've had to kind of build my career. Or I've said to myself, I can't get married until I've done this." So there's all these different sacrifices, that women are confronted with. And we want them to know that you can really achieve everything. So this is a place where we're helping women to find how they can balance all their desires and really be beneficial to the society and feel complete, feel fulfilled with themselves. Today is a special edition of our seminars. It's an extremely special one. And this is because one of the things that really kickstarted WTAL is questions I kept on getting about purpose and passion. I've had students who have asked me, "Hey, Dr. Chika, I'm kind of like all over the place. I don't know what to do with my life. I'm good at something, but I don't know if that's what I'm supposed to do with my profession. Or I love to do this, but does it mean I should be doing that? And how do I balance the fact that the thing I love to do doesn't pay me, but I need to earn money as well?" So all these questions kept coming, and just the frequency of these questions really kind of birthed this seminar, and also WTAL as a whole. So we're going to be looking today at purpose and passion. And we have 2 phenomenal women here, Dr. Jacqueline Musabende and Ashley Tedham, who are going to tell us, really how to balance both. Because you're going to hear from them that these are women who have found purpose and who are still pursuing passion-driven projects. So they found a way to really marry these 2 things that are often very conflicting. And so this is a fantastic seminar for everyone. So I encourage you to pay rapt attention, get out your notes, write your questions down. We're going to have them answer all those questions before we wrap up today. We're going to entertain questions from our online family as well. And I also have my own questions, because I'm also curious, to have my own questions answered. Finally, before I get off, I do want to ask you to, so for these past 3 years, we haven't been funded by any external organization. It's been self-funded by myself, by members of the organizing committee who are extremely passionate about what we do here and are seeing that is really kind of benefiting the society. So one thing we ask you before you leave here is to think if your time here was worthwhile, if you find yourself acquiring new knowledge or living here with a sense of, fulfillment, that I really love being here. I love listening to Ashley. I love listening to Jacqueline. It was a fantastic conversation, a fantastic couple of hours here. I felt very welcome. This really suited me. We ask you to please donate to this cause. So there's no pressure. We want you to only give if you found that you've taken away from here as well. So if it doesn't benefit you, then that's impossible, because it will. It has always been extremely beneficial. So if you find yourself excited and just like, you're having all these light bulbs going off in your head. You know, you're smiling, you're excited about your presence here. Then please donate to what we're doing here. We really want this to keep on going, and we'd love you to contribute and donate in the way that you can. So yeah, before we wrap up today, we're going to have one of our staff kind of go around with some bookmarks with all the information you need. Again, just telling you about what WTAL does, what the cause is about, and how you can donate. So yeah, thank you for listening. On that note, can we play the introductory video for Ashley before she comes up?
Jacqueline Musabenda is an associate professor of international business at Mount Royal University, Alberta, where she teaches global business, international marketing, business in emerging markets, project management and management information system. A native Calgarian with a passion for international and community development, Ashley obtained her bachelor's degree in political science at the University of Calgary in 2007, and a master's degree in 2012 in international affairs at the Graduate Institute in Geneva, Switzerland. Over the last 15 years, Ashley has worked with various international organizations.
And to the right of myself was this young lady, Ashley. And, you know, one thing led to the other. She was just a very happy,
in Sierra Leone,
person.
Canada and Switzerland, including the Canadian International Development Agency, the permanent mission of the Republic of Korea to the United Nations and World Trade Organization, the World Meteorological Organization, and the World Health Organization. In 2016, Ashley returned to Calgary and became the executive director of the Duke of Edinburgh's International Award, the award. In 2020, Ashley was included in Avenue magazine's Top 40 Under 40, highlighting the award's work empowering criminally involved youth through a project she developed called the Youth Resiliency Project. In April 2021, Ashley took on a new role with Benevity. She is the Director of Operations. Ashley is a passionate volunteer and currently sits on the board of Cause Canada and Making Changes Association.
Among the top 40 most recognized people in our city for one thing or another is really an accolade. And so I said to her, you need to come and speak at WTAL. We need to listen to a woman like yourself. And besides that, she has also risen to, you know, very high levels in her career. So there's so much we can learn from her. Yeah, so can we play the video now? Is it ready?
And community development, Ashley obtained her bachelor's degree in political science at the University of at the Graduate Institute in Geneva, Switzerland. A native Calgarian with a passion for international and community development, Ashley obtained her bachelor's degree in political science at the University of Calgary in 2007, and a master's degree in 2012 in international affairs at the Graduate Institute. A native Calgarian with a passion for international and community development, Ashley obtained her bachelor's degree in political science at the University of Calgary in 2007, and a master's degree in 2012 in international affairs at the Graduate Institute in Geneva, Switzerland. Over the last 15 years, Ashley has worked with various international organizations in Sierra Leone, Canada and Switzerland, including the Canadian International Development Agency, the permanent mission of the Republic of Korea to the United Nations and World Trade Organization, the World Meteorological Organization, and the World Health Organization. In 2016, Ashley returned to Calgary and became the executive director of the Duke of Edinburgh's International Award, the award. In 2020, Ashley was included in Avenue magazine's Top 40 Under 40, highlighting the award's work empowering criminally involved youth through a project she developed called the Youth Resiliency Project. In April 2021, Ashley took on a new role with Benevity. She is the Director of Operations. Ashley is a passionate volunteer and currently sits on the board of Cause Canada and Making Changes Association.
Thank you, Ashley.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, thanks. All right, is this on? Everybody hear me okay? Amazing. Well, first of all, I haven't been called young in a while, so that was very nice. And I sound way smarter with a British accent reading my, my profile, so thank you for that. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here, and I feel very, very motivated and passionate to speak whenever I can to women about women's journeys, professionally and personally, and how they interact with one another, because it's not easy, and we learn from each other. So it's an honor to be here. So when I was reflecting on my career journey in preparation for tonight, I kept coming back to all of these different chapters of my life and all the experiences, both big and small, that provided me with these little bits of information or these lessons that increased my self-awareness, that I needed to move, that gave me self-awareness to move through each preceding chapter. So today is a bit of a storytelling conversation and less of a lecture of sorts. So my hope is that in sharing a bit of my journey, it will help you with your own in some positive way. So just to give you a little bit of background of who I am, I'm, like the British accent said, I am a native Calgarian. I was born and raised here. And although I've lived abroad in many different countries, all of my childhood was here, and I've been back for about 7 years. So Calgary is very, very close to my heart. And it's interesting, which we'll probably get to later, but I spent a good part of my youth trying to get away from Calgary, and I find it very ironic that I am here, because I think if people had waged bets, they would have said that I would have been probably anywhere else but. So I don't know, I don't know, Sheik, if you had the slides that they were going to show, but if you do have them, great, and if not, no worries. So I'll just tell you when to go, so you can go to the next slide there. Next. Let's see. No. Let's give it a sec. There you go. Stop there. So this is a picture of when I was a kid, and I want to be clear that this is usually how I look. The other picture is more of like, after I've discovered how to do my hair and makeup and got a professional picture done. But I show this because, we all are that 6-7-year-old self. The only thing that changes is increased experiences, and we start to look a little bit different. But I was really thinking back about how I've changed, and in lots of ways I have, but in lots of ways I'm still that kind of funny kid with frizzy hair and big glasses. But when I'll just go to the next slide. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about my story through some of these chapters that I keep going back to. And the first one that really was significant in my life was when I was 17 years old, I moved to Paris, France. So this all started in grade 11 when I had actually one of my best friends did an exchange program to Australia. And she came back from a year abroad, and she said, Ashley, this is great. Basically you get to go to another country without your parents. It's less rules. It's more fun. School's easier. It's going to be great. So I thought this was like a masterful loophole of trying to get out of high school. And so, of course, as soon as I heard about this program, I ran home and told my parents that I was doing an exchange program, and I wanted to go to Australia. And unfortunately, Australia was all full. So I had to pick a second country. And we're just all over, hey? There we go. You can go to the next one. Oh, it's not showing now. It's blank. That's okay. We'll roll with it. So anyways, the only other country that I knew anything about was France. And really, let's be like, that was generous, because I didn't know much about France, but I knew about Paris. And I knew that Paris must be fabulous because everybody talks about it and a lot of people write about it and there's lots of movies about it and it seems really romantic and glamorous, so I picked France. And at the time, I can honestly say that it really never crossed my mind that not being able to speak French was a big deal. And in fact, it really didn't dawn on me until, and I promise you this is the truth, until the moment I was standing in the Toronto airport waiting for my Air France flight from Toronto to Paris. And I started hearing all of these sounds around me. And honestly, for the first time in my life, I realized I didn't understand. Oh, perfect, thank you. Understand the noises that were coming out of someone's mouth. That's how tight-knit my little bubble was for the first 17 years of my life. I lived in this very Anglophone little bubble that it wasn't until I was 17 years old that I heard another language. And so, of course, in that moment, I started to panic because it was too late. It was too late to learn French. And so I got to France and I got to Paris, and things started okay. I was put with a host family who spoke French. Their daughter went to an international school. It was in this beautiful suburb west of downtown Paris. And I thought this could be okay. Until the first day of high school. So you can imagine, here I am with my little bike, and I show up at my high school wearing baggy jeans and skate shoes and a big hoodie, because after all, it was the 90s. It was 1999 to be exact. And I find myself surrounded by these teenagers on scooters and mopeds with scarves, smoking cigarettes, looking way too cool. And in that moment, I realized I didn't even know how to introduce myself. I didn't know how to say, I don't speak French. I'm from Canada. I'm here on an internship. And so I just really actually awkwardly followed people around for several weeks. And it took about 3 full months before I could start to put sentences together. And maybe some of you have had that experience where you're new to a place and it feels so altogether foreign, and you have to dig deep in within yourself to kind of figure out, how do I make my way in this new place that's so unfamiliar and scary? And that year in Paris was transformational, because my host family ended up being a very abusive one, both physically and emotionally. And I had never been exposed to anything like that before. And simultaneously, while I was struggling with this host family that I'd been placed with, I was falling in love with this country and this city and this exposure to everything international art. And I mean, we all know the history of France and the poetry and the literature and the art and history is so full. And so it started to change me. It started to change who I was. And it really forced me to start questioning who I was. How do I belong in this new place? And now that I know all of this, what do I do with it? And anyways, so, I look back on this year now, and I was determined to stay. I never told my parents about any negative thing that was going on, because I was so determined to succeed and to do this on my own, because I had never done anything on my own before. And looking back now, I realized it was that year that I really started my career journey and self-discovery and learning what I really wanted out of life, what I was really passionate about. And I know that if it wasn't for that year, I would never have learned French or studied political science or done a master's degree or traveled the world. And I definitely wouldn't have the job I have today. So now looking back, I see how it was all beautifully connected in ways that I really had no control over myself. And each experience provided me these little hints and lessons that helped me discover who I was and what it was I truly desired. And so the last 15 years or so has been a journey collecting all these little treasures of information, helping me kind of move to each preceding chapter. So I don't know if anybody in the audience has heard about the book, The Alchemist. If you have, raise your hand. Okay, great. So this book I got a hold of in my first year of political science. I think an old boyfriend gave it to me, if I'm being honest. But anyway, I fell in love with this book. There was something right away about this story and the journey of this little shepherd who longed to see the world and was wrestling with the purpose of his life. And anyways, the theme is really all about finding his destiny and his purpose. And for me, it took a really long time to understand what it was I really wanted. And my career has been really motivated by this constant yearning and the hope for doing something that was both important to me and impactful in a positive way to someone else. And the treasure that I was after, I thought at first was, that successful career, money and influence and having the power to influence people's lives. And for me, it really was motivated by this altruistic desire to help. But I thought, as a young person, that had to look like the Secretary General of the United Nations, or an international lawyer, or a field worker in war-torn countries. And while I did know that I had this desire to help people, I really also was very pulled and distracted by all of those things that we all are at times, of that egocentric sort of motivations related to financial success or prestige and recognition, and that's just hard when you're young and trying to figure it all out. Now, to be clear, I never actually achieved any of those things. But sometimes the lure of them is distracting. And anyways, without a very clear vision of what I was after, how to get there, I just really honestly took it one step at a time. And this is my favorite quote from the book, and the quote is, "When you want something, all the universe conspires in helping you to achieve it." And whether you believe it's God or the universe or just energy or something unexplainable, I really subscribe to this, and looking back on my life, I see evidence of it. And so I'm going to do the next slide. Where do I have to point this? Anywhere. There we go. Chapter 2. So after I graduated university, I had a girlfriend who had applied to an internship with a Canadian development agency in Sierra Leone. And we were both in political science, and we were super interested in international development. And she had said to me one day, she said, I've applied for this, but I'm not going to get it. And I had a dream that you went, so I think you should apply. I kid you not. And so that's exactly what I did, and that's exactly what happened. I applied, I got it, she didn't, I don't know why. She was much smarter than me. But anyways, I found myself right out of university heading to a country I really knew nothing about other than what I read in the history books. And as I'm sure some of you remember, Sierra Leone in the early 2000s was the poorest country in the world and had just gone through one of the worst civil wars. Mostly because it was fought by children. And I had no idea what I was getting into. But when you're young and straight out of university, you know, you're kind of a little naive and a little cocky, and you think, I've got this, I can do it. And I remember waiting for my flight to Freetown. I was in London, and there was this like old white British guy, and he said, have you ever been to Sierra Leone before? And I said, no. He said, do you like roller coasters? I said, no. He said, well, then you're not going to like Sierra Leone. And honestly, it was a perfect way of explaining it because, you know, my experience there was so up and down. I've never felt happier, and I've never struggled more in terms of, you know, it was the first time I really was exposed to poverty, to suffering, to war, and all the political turmoil and the challenges that country has gone through in that region, and it was humbling. It was profoundly humbling. And I remember, I think this is like, truly, it was like God's way of, of putting me in my place. But one day, I walked down to a big meeting with the kind of all these very serious individuals, and we were, we kind of, you know, every morning we would start in a huddle, and actually we did a like interfaith prayer meeting. And I, unbeknownst to me, I'd walked into this room with my skirt tucked into my underwear. And I thought I was so cool and so smart. And I feel like that just summarized Sierra Leone for me. It was like I went thinking I was everything, but I was the girl with her skirt tucked into her underwear. Anyway, really, Sierra Leone was that massive lesson of like, girl, you have a lot more to learn. And so, I took that lesson in humility and went back to Canada. And people always used to ask me, like, you know, how has your life changed? Like, what do you do differently now after living in Sierra Leone? Like, how do you think differently? Has it changed you? And this quote from The Alchemist really, like, speaks to this, because it says, the secret of life, though, is to fall 7 times and to get up 8. The simple things are also the most extraordinary things, and only the wise can see them. And this speaks to 2 things. I think, you know, Sierra Leone is an example of being knocked down 7 and getting up 8. The people that I met there, the resiliency, the determination, the support for one another, that was profoundly evident to me living there and getting to know people there. And then the second piece, you know, the simple things are also the most extraordinary. The answer to the question that everybody kept asking me was always, I will never take a hot cup of coffee and a hot shower for granted ever again. And I really haven't. It really is the small things in life that are extraordinary. So here we come to chapter 3. So after Sierra Leone, I went home and did a lot of work with newcomer youth, because I really was so moved by my experience with young people in Sierra Leone that I really wanted to find a way to connect with young people here in Canada and support them in some way. Because again, having gone through, although a very different experience, you know, in Paris, I completely recognize that it was, you know, an opportunity and a privilege, and it was a lot easier in some ways, or in a lot of ways, than newcomer youth experience here. You know, they have no choice, a lot of them. So I really wanted, I wanted to connect with young people and help them feel at home here. And so after a few years of doing that, I had this, you know, this pounding of my heart was just like, I want something else. Like, I've got to do something else. This is not good enough. And so I was really faced with this question of, like, I know I need to be more educated. I know I need more experience. And so kind of trying to figure out how best to do that. I applied to 2 different degrees. I had applied to a master's in social work because I wanted to help people, and that was clearly one way I could do it. And then the other was a master's in international development at my dream school, which was the Graduate Institute in Geneva, Switzerland. And I will never forget the day that I got that acceptance email, nor will I ever get the vision of my dad jumping up and down in the kitchen going like, yippee, you know. He literally shook the kitchen. But it was a miracle to me. I never believed or dreamed that in a million years I would be able to have that experience. And you know, over the next weeks and months that followed, you know, that fear and imposter syndrome started to creep in, and I'm going, oh my gosh, I can't do this. This is, I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. They're going to see right through me. And I remember arriving in Geneva and settling into my teeny tiny little dorm room and hiding there for like 24 hours, just like so somehow scared, or actually just trying to muster the courage to like, you know, ignite this new chapter and tackle all of these new experiences. And anyway, after a number of, I think, happenstantial introductions to what became my future best friend group, or my tribe, as I like to call them, you know, I started to get a groove. And the first day of class, it was the headmaster of the whole school who gave us a pep talk and was kind of giving us these pieces of advice. Like, and I'll never forget, and this is, I live by it today, is you need to, if you want to be successful, you need to know when to close the textbook, get out of your house, go pick up a glass of wine with someone, or a coffee if you don't drink wine, or a tea, or whatever, but have a conversation with people. Ask them about what they think about different things. Embrace differences. And just simply connect. Learn from people who know better than you. And I believe this is the anchor that remains in my life as I kind of try to navigate different things, is connection is always the most important to getting you closer to what you really want to be doing. Because it's those little hints that people give you, you know, that they see something in you you don't see in yourself, or they say, you know, you need to meet this person, or you need to go to this event, or, you know, it was those things that I think really connected me to the next best thing. It wasn't me. It was the connections and the result of those. And anyway, and after he was done talking, he made us all go around the room and say, you know, where we were from and what school we had gone to. And, you know, everybody started saying, okay, I'm Jennifer, I'm from Oxford, and I'm Frank, and I'm from Cambridge, and so, you know, Stanford, etc. It was like all the best schools in the world. And I started to feel small again. And anyway, when they got to me, I said, I'm Ashley. I went to the University of Calgary. And I remember this girl next to me from Harvard, of course, says, you know, is that even a good school? And, you know, I took a breath and I looked at her and I said, not really, but it got me here sitting right next to you. And she and I, with time, became friends, but that really, you know, shut her up, because, like, at the end of the day, none of that really matters. It really doesn't. It's not, it can help you, but it shouldn't also hold you back, right? And that was really like the lesson that Geneva experience was, that, you know, there's only one thing that makes a dream impossible to achieve, and that's the fear of failure. If you believe you can't do something, you'll never do it. If you don't apply, you'll never get in. Sometimes it's as simple as that. I honestly didn't think in a million years I would get into this school, or that I would graduate, or that I would even end up publishing a paper from my time there. You know, I felt like I was failing every day, actually, at grad school. I'm not an academic. I really hate school. I would rather be drinking a glass of wine or a cup of coffee with a friend and having a meaningful conversation. But I never let that stop me from trying. You know, my life motto became, feel the fear and do it anyways. It's not original, but it helped me find those little treasures deep within myself. It's given me the gift of staying connected to my heart. And I gained the confidence in Geneva and some very important information about myself. And like the fancy person said, I ended up getting the opportunity to work for the Korean government, the WMO, World Health Organization. And, you know, I really hated working at the UN. And that's the thing, like, the whole time I was driven towards what I thought was ultimately the goal, which was a fancy UN position, making some positive changes in other people's lives. But I felt like I was so removed from those people that I didn't find joy in it. And I could never find my place. I never found the role. It's a lot of the reason why I had so many opportunities in different roles, because I was so desperate to find the one that felt right. But you know what? It gave me the illusion of success. I liked the way people responded to me when they said, oh, you live in Geneva. Oh, you work at the UN. Look at you, you've made it. And inside, I literally was miserable. And I remember, so before I get there, I was going to say, you know, like, I thought that was the treasure. That was the treasure, was the UN. But it wasn't. And so, in the leap of faith, I walked into the World Health Organization one day and I put my resignation letter in, and 6 weeks later I moved back to Calgary, Alberta with no plan. No plan. But there was this yearning of like, something is leading me here. But what I had learned along my journey so far was that the right thing is often the hardest. You know? When you're like, I really think I should do this, but I really don't want to. That's the good stuff. Like, that's where the good stuff is. So you should definitely do that. There's a difference between like, I don't want to do this and I don't think I should do this. But when it's just scary, it's probably absolutely the right thing to do. So here I was, chapter 4, final chapter. Well, let's hope not the final chapter, but the final chapter for today. Calgary, the discovery of unexpected joys. So I moved back to Calgary in August 2016, and I had, like I said, no plan. It took a long time to settle, and after a few short projects here and there, I finally got the job offer to take the executive director role at the Duke of Edinburgh Award. And I knew I needed and wanted leadership experience, and I knew I needed to start somewhere. And I didn't know how much, not much about the organization, but I knew it was a youth-focused leadership program. And that was the thing that pulled me there. It's like, the youth piece, I loved this. The leadership piece, ooh, I like that. Ooh, I have the opportunity to be innovative and try something different because I'm not stuck within a massive bureaucracy. And I really am so grateful for that experience, because I knew it wasn't also where I was supposed to end up forever, but I knew it had a purpose. And it was serving me and other people in positive ways. And so after 4 years, me alongside a number of other people did some amazing work, for young people. We took a program that is typically found in private school systems and made it basically, used it for a rehabilitation program within the justice system. And we implemented it in Nunavut and the Northwest Territories and all over Alberta, in Calgary and Edmonton. And we had young people who, because of the program, go back to school, find work, learn how to snowboard or skateboard or do art. Just opened up new opportunities for them. And then after some time, this is actually when COVID started. The program changed a lot. We couldn't have the same interaction in the justice systems. The organization was also changing, and I felt another pull, like change is coming. But I didn't know where that was going to lead me, and it was that moment that actually I was nominated for this Top 40 Under 40, and I remember getting this call, and I have never felt more of not suitable for Top 40 Under 40. I remember when they called me, I was at home. I hadn't showered in days. I was trying to work. I had a 10-month-old at my feet who was sick all the time, and I felt like I was actually failing at everything. And that's when they're like, oh, you're a Top 40 Under 40. I'm like, no, I'm not. But that was also a gift. It's not that I was really the top 40. There's lots of, or under 40. I'm 40 now, so I'm not under 40 anymore. But, there was lots of deserving people out there. It wasn't that I was better than anyone else or doing anything differently. It was, I think, just luck or happenstance or something. But it was a gift that was given to me that helped me move to the next thing. So here's my next favorite from The Alchemist. Remember that wherever your heart is, there you will find your treasure. I moved back to Calgary. I got married. I had a little baby girl. I reconnected with my home, my community, and for the first time in a long time, my heart left me alone. Instead of trying to push me somewhere else, it really kept saying, you need to stay right where you are. And even though my brain really wanted to go to Paris and to Geneva and all the fancy fun places and have those exciting experiences, my heart was calm. And so that really was a sign to me that no, there's purpose here. So this is kind of my little roadmap, This is my journey at finding a purposeful paycheck. Every single chapter along the way gave me a little hint or another lesson about who I was, what I was good at, how I could use my unique gifts or personality in a way that ultimately would serve both my family, myself, and other people. And it's taken a long time to start to figure it out. I've been with Benevity for 2 years. And I remember my first interview with a man named Caleb Wall, who became my boss. We had similar experiences. He was just this international, dynamic, caring, wonderful guy. And I remember thinking, I have got to work with this guy. He's got something I want to be a part of. And 3 months, and I took the role. It was not a leadership role, and I took it on purpose because I really I wanted something different, but I wanted to create space and time to learn and to be with my family. The universe had different plans for me and for Caleb. a few months after I started at Benevity, Caleb was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer and passed away. And I found myself in another leadership role, and in a role that I didn't know very much about. It was a brand new space. It's the first for-profit company I worked for. I had no background in tech, and it was challenging and very intimidating, very humbling. But, you know, tell your heart that the fear of suffering is worse than the suffering itself, and that no heart has ever suffered when it goes in search of its dreams, because every second of the search is a second's encounter with God and with eternity. And whether you believe in God or not, I really do believe that if you stop letting the fear part hold you back, you realize that it's just never as bad as you think it's going to be. And that we were made to do hard things. You know, we've been given all that we need to survive and do hard things. And so what I know for sure about life is that each time you make a hard decision, you lose something else. And there is suffering that comes along with that. But you can't avoid it, and that the fear of suffering is always harder than the suffering itself. One of my favorite sayings is, you will never be completely at home again, because part of your heart will always be somewhere else. That is the price you pay for the richness of loving and knowing people in more than one place. You know, there is a richness to life when you stop trying to avoid hard things and just lean into them, because that's where I have found that the true treasure lies. And so, with that, here's the summary. I married an engineer. He is the opposite of me in every way. He is not an emotional person. He is very practical and logical. And every time that I get super emotional about something, he says, I am going to give you a hot tip for better living. So these are my hot tips for better living today. Number one, your purpose can evolve and grow, and it likely will. And, you know, like Dr. Shika said, you know, it's with women especially, you know, you feel like you have to do it all and do it all perfect. I really don't think you can do it all. You can't at least do it all at once. You know, and I think there is a chapter for everything. There's a season for everything. You know, now I look back and I think, you know, there's a season to be fit and young. There is a season to, you know, wear stretchy pants. There's a season to have a clean house, and there's, you know, those other chapters where you just gotta let it go. Because you can't do it all. You can't do it all at once. Number three is, this is kind of from the book, you know, they talk about omens in the book, but I mean, you can think about it as lessons really, but look for the lessons, especially in the hard stuff. You know, like, I mean, I really struggled working at the UN for lots of reasons, but now I look back and I think, oh, you know, it taught me a lot. And what it taught me helped me move forward. Number four is listen to your heart, if you haven't picked up on that theme yet, especially when it's like beating really fast. Feel the fear and do it anyways. Don't forget about the work in. I had a doctor's appointment the other day, and my doctor said, you know, how's the work in going? And I was like, what does that mean? She's like, you know, the opposite of working out. How's the working in? And I was like, I have no idea what you are talking about. She's like, you know, like self-care. And I was like, I love this new term. Like, I've never heard about this too. Like, she looked at me like I had four heads, like I should know what the work in means. But I love that. Like, don't forget about the working in. You know, whatever that means to you. Number 7 is suffering is always part of the journey. So if you think you're going to get to where you want to go without pain, good luck. And honestly, 8, this is the most important thing for me, the kindness piece. Like, I always look back like at different, relationships in my life, and some of them are really like, we met randomly. I remember walking through Geneva, and there was like this very lost backpacker, and she, like a lot of Canadians, like she had like a really large Canadian flag on her backpack. And so I'm like, okay, she needs help. Anyway, we just, she was lost and she needed some direction, and we ended up, I said, well, I'm going that way. I'm actually going to have a coffee. You could join me. We had a coffee, and then, we became friends, and we're still friends today. And that was like 15 years ago. But those small acts of kindness and also connection, like being open to meeting someone new, having a different conversation. And this is why I always say yes to these things as well, because I think you just really never know who you're going to meet, the conversations you're going to have, and what that's going to mean to someone else or even to yourself. So anyway, that is all I have for you today. Thank you for listening.